Hey value investors, thank you for joining me. My name is Michael from Deep Value Returns on Seeking Alpha. Today I want to talk about Coupa. So Coupa just put out a very strong Q2 result. We're going to discuss its guidance, we're going to talk about question marks that I have about its revenue growth rates, we're going to dig into its billings, we're going to talk about the rule of 40, and then we're going to bring this all together and talk about its valuation. So I'm going to just dig right in, and we can see here, so for Q2 on the graph there, you can see that the revenue growth rate was up 42% year over year. So very strong, came in, accelerated from the 40% in the first quarter. So that's very good. The problems that I have here is with the guidance, and more specifically, we're going to just try and address really Q4, because Q3 is still okay, although it does point towards a slight dip, but really the big problem here is Q4. So let's just dig right in, right? So the first questions that I'm having right now is, okay, so for the last 3 quarters, Coupa has been growing at above 40%. Fantastic. You know, it's a strong company, well recognized by analysts. Great. But as we move forward and we see that Q4 here on the graph is pointing towards the mid-teens, we kind of start having question marks, okay? Is this a company that's growing at 40%, or is this a company that's growing at closer to the mid-teens? Even if we say, okay, management's being slightly conservative, and we start saying, okay, no, really what's going to happen is they're going to come up at 20%, we're still pointing towards a 2,000 basis point deceleration from the first half of the year as we progress towards the later points of the year. And then it brings up question marks about what's going to be the exit rate as we go into the next year. As you know, it's very important to understand what the sustainable growth rates are going to be, because that's where the multiple that people are going to be willing to pay for. If you have a company that's growing at the mid-teens, you're going to get a very compressed multiple relative to what it is right now. Okay, so I already discussed about its Q4 results, but let's just dig into the billings. So billings were up. The second line on the press statement points towards billings being up 49% year over year. But then we kind of figure out that there's some inorganic aspects driving that. And investors don't really like inorganic aspects. Management doesn't give you a hard organic growth rate. They just say that the company as a whole organically grew at billings at higher than 30%. But then again, it says, okay, if we look at towards Q3, the exit rate for Q3 is expected to be 41%. But then you're thinking to yourself, okay, what aspect of that is organic? And then you think to yourself further that if the company has an exit rate of Q3 of 41%, that's on a trailing basis. But then if Q2 is just pointing towards above 30%, that means that there's kind of like a dip down slightly. And if as you know, if billings are lower than the revenue growth rate, there's going to be a gap to fill, because billings are really a leading indicator. And if that means that, there's just going to be some kind of question marks. And if you're paying a large multiple for a stock like this, you really want no question marks. So I'm just going to try and go through and speed up this a little bit. And the one thing that I want to talk about is the rule of 40. So rule of 40, it leads you to how prudent a company is growing on the top line relative to its bottom line profitability. And you can see here that on the rule of 40, the free cash flow margin is still above, the Coupa is still above that 40% hurdle. But as we go to Q3 of next quarter, management says, okay, that our free cash flow is going to be approximately 10 million. That implies that the free cash flow margin is going to be approximately 6%. So if the company is growing in Q3 at the high end of kind of like, let's say 35-36% year over year, you add in the free cash flow margin 6%, you're kind of coming in at approximately 42%. So far, so good, right? But then we're going to have question marks on that operating leverage compressing going down into Q4. And if the company is growing, let's say we discussed at the beginning at approximately 20%, and you add in some free cash flow margin, let's say approximately 6-7%, you're going to come in the best case scenario at approximately 28%. Let's see, even, let's push it up, let's say 29%. It's going to be still some distance from that 40% hurdle that investors really want to see. Now, as I talked about before, this is a company that's well recognized by Gartner and others, as well. It's really a leader in a space, but that's why you really having to pay 23 times next year's sales. But then again, if you're paying this kind of multiple, you want to know for certainty what its growth rate is going to be next year. You want to have some very strong visibility. I'll give you some examples. So ServiceNow is growing. It has a trajectory of reaching 15 billion in revenues by 2025. So it's a very large scale business. It's growing in the high 20%, has 30% free cash flow margin consistently, and is priced at approximately 18 times next year's revenue. So that's a step down from where Coupa's at, and has financials that are much better than Coupa's. Workday is a financial management and human capital management software platform, and it's likely to be growing at close to 20%, and it's priced at just 12 times next year's sales. So in that light, I mean, in this vendor space, I feel that Coupa is slightly expensive for what's on offer here. Probably I'm being a bit too critical, but I'm just letting you know what I'm thinking about right now. If you want to know what kind of stocks I'm excited about, you're welcome to do a totally free trial to see if it suits you on my marketplace. Go Deep Value Returns, cancel anytime before 14 days, and you're not going to be charged anything. You're welcome to check out my reviews on Seeking Alpha to see if it resonates with you, see what other people have said about the platform. We've got a growing investment community, and as I always tell to people, I'm not really going to replace what you do. I'm just going to be a source of ideas. If you haven't got the time or inclination to figure out which stocks you want to get involved with, I service up 1 or 2 ideas a month, and you're welcome to check them out, and you say, okay, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, and you just add ideas that someone's done a due diligence, and we kind of discuss as a group. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.